Okay, are all the spokespersons up front? With that, we'll go right down the order. Could the spokesperson for the media and its role in shaping perception of race and ethnicity step forward to the microphone and report on your outcome?
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
I'm Carlos Acevedo. I'm with New Haven Probation, adult probation officer. The three topics that we arrived at during our discussion, the first one was to establish an independent body to audit the news media, and of course you have to be very careful that you don't infringe on any rights. The second one, of course, is to promote consistent policy for the dissemination of the mugshots, which were a heated discussion. Either use all the mugshots or none. And you can change policy simply by contacting legislation and being active in your community to change these laws that the state troopers have and other police departments. 3 was the media collaboration with community and leaders. And you can use some kind of a commission, as I mentioned earlier, to mediate between the public and the media, have discussions, determine what's being reported or discuss what's being reported. Start a dialogue that helps the minorities express themselves in terms of what they see being reported. And I believe that's it. Self-report is part of the mainstream media. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Could the facilitator for the urban versus suburban policing step forward?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The three most important issues. Actually, we had an extremely vibrant group, and we came up with many more than 3 issues, but the 3 most important. First is we have to recognize that race is an issue. Acknowledge the disparity across the board. Second, early intervention for young people, and that should be uniform throughout the state, not different from town to town. And third, diversity in all aspects of the criminal justice system. By that we mean that the criminal justice system has to become more diversified in terms of those who are meting out that justice. Ways to make a difference. Number 1, we have to work with grassroots agencies to build community programs. And number 2, equality in policing policies free from cultural and institutional bias. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the spokesperson for the effect of the war on drugs and the mental health care system on minority populations.
Good afternoon. My name is Jen Robinson. I'm from Court Operations. 3 issues that we came up with in our session were first, educating the court system, DOC, Public Defender's Office, state's attorneys, and the decision makers about the cost benefits of mental health and addiction treatment versus punitive measures, and do so by supporting it with evidence-based statistics. The second issue is to educate the youth at an early age and incorporate after-school programs, job programs, and mentoring programs at an early age. And the third is to reallocate money to programs that work and implement measures for accountability for those programs to ensure that they continue working. Thank you.
Thank you. Juvenile justice, comprehensive strategies for keeping young people out of the criminal justice system and in school.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Keller, and I'm from the Judicial Branch. Our first issue was that we need to improve collaboration and build bridges so that state agencies and cities and schools and community nonprofit agencies aren't all working in silos. We need to figure out a way to better engage parents on a lot of the volunteer commissions and appointed commissions that we have. We need to also increase funding for local community nonprofit agencies that are working on the grassroots level with the children that we see coming into the judicial branch. There has to be a connection between the courts and the other state agencies, and a connection between local community groups such as youth services bureaus and juvenile review boards, nonprofits who are working with children, DCF, so that basically the people in the community know who they can turn to and what's available to help them. I think the real goal here is to someday have a system where we just intervene without having to go to court to get any help, or having to have DCF come to your house to give you help. Secondly, we need to improve school climate. School should be a positive place to be. When a child comes into that school, he should feel welcome, he should feel recognized, important, and respected. And schools have to be provided with the tools to change their climates. We need to look at the level of disciplinary measures, the level of suspensions and expulsions, and create a better environment so that discipline is not such an issue. The schools also need to collaborate more with the judicial branch, with the local community people, with the local community nonprofits, as well as with DCF, again, to focus on intervention before it gets to the point where a child is arrested or referred to court. The third issue is to enhance children's self-image, focus on positive programming, such as mentors. There was an idea suggested of paying full-time mentors to assist the court, but mentors could also be utilized elsewhere, including in the school. There was a good suggestion that some of these hiring restrictions ought to be lifted so we could actually use some of the men who are coming out of prison to serve as mentors for some of our younger children. We should look to faith-based initiatives as well as sports and other positive programs. In addition, we need to enhance mental health services for children as well as services for children who have learning disabilities, because when they disengage in school or elsewhere, that's when they start getting into trouble. The fourth issue, and I'm just going to do it really as quickly as possible, but it's a very significant one and important, so we wanted to add a fourth one, is accountability. Ensure for the public that there is a clear process as to when, where, and how they can lodge a complaint and learn how it was addressed. And this should apply to prosecutors, court employees, judges, public defenders, police, and the DCF. And one final sentiment was that we felt that a lot of facts and figures that could have been provided about what's going on right here in Connecticut should be relayed to the Commission on Racial Disparity so that they know that we are working and we are trying and we have made some progress on the DMC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the impact of underlying social issues on the criminal justice system.
Hey everyone, my name is Matthew. I work for External Affairs. I'm their intern. So I just want to say hello. Yeah, I know. Well, we figured out top 3 areas of concern. The first one was to actually acknowledge the underlying systematic forms of racism, because it does exist, but we don't necessarily acknowledge it a lot of the times. So that was our first concern. The second concern is the actual system itself and the way we set services, whereas we set services for individuals, not for an intervention and not necessarily prevention. And we thought that maybe if we set services for prevention rather than intervention, it would better suit the community. And the third and final one is reinvesting allocated money, such as resources, into stuff that has been researched into like that has best practices, sort of giving money back to the education, but actually making sure that the money actually goes to education. So those were our 3 points. Thanks.
Thank you. Perception versus reality, youth violence.
Hi, I'm Lisa Richard. I'm from CSSP and Family Services, and had the good fortune of listening to 3 teenagers from New Haven this morning about the perception versus the reality of violence. And our 3 priorities were early intervention and focus on prevention. We need to set expectations for success early for all youth, provide mentors, positive role models and influences, some community support, and focus. The children that we listened to, the teenagers we listened to really wanted youth center community programs that provide an alternative to being on the street. The second focus was educational incentives, some statutory revisions and/or incentives to promote studying in school and earning GEDs or other degrees or diplomas, to provide training to teachers to serve youth needs, and to expand the concept of education that includes vocational programs, art, music, theater, to provide the basics so that the kids can participate, such as transportation and those kinds of issues that keep kids from being able to participate in those activities. One thing that really struck us was that the kids felt that they were not safe in school, so we really need to provide them with a safe environment to participate in. And lastly, to integrate the children and youth into decision making so that they have a voice. They really need to feel like they're being heard.
Thank you. The impact of politics on our criminal justice system.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Winfield. I'm with a lot of groups, but I'm a candidate for General Assembly 94th District out of New Haven. Replacing Bill Dyson. And Bill was very instrumental in us getting to these 3 points. We had a discussion, it was very impassioned, and we focused on education. We looked at education, 2 things under education, the schools. So for instance, there are some processes in place which would, if a young person committed certain crimes, they would be removed from the school, first with suspension, leading to expulsion possibly. And it does tend to move towards expulsion. There was a discussion that focused around a young man who during the summertime had done some things and had found himself back on track, but when he found himself back in school, he was then removed from school. It doesn't make a lot of sense if we're trying to push him forward in life. So we want to focus on how we can look at this and maybe how the legislature can help us in this. Also, the Department of Corrections. We know that some of the educational resources in the Department of Corrections have been removed. We want to take another look at that. There was an effort by some of the people in the group that we were in to talk about the pardon system. And we were talking specifically about provisional pardons and whether they're effective or not. So we want to take a look at that and the pardon system as a whole, because there's a sense that the information about pardons may not be getting out to everybody that it should be, especially in minority communities where it has a real impact. And under that also we looked at the expungement process. And there were various discussions about that. One of the most impactful possibly was, why is it that someone who may have committed a crime but 20 years later finds themselves still having that crime? Why don't we just make it easier for them by removing this off of their record? If they've been clean for 20 years, it doesn't make much sense that they have to jump through the hoops. And then the last thing was we wanted the commission to take a real role in this process, because we think that's probably a good way of making sure that these things actually happen. And the group said that they thought that not just asking the commission to take a role was a good thing, but we would like to help them take that role because we want to see this happen, and so we should take a real part in it. So we are offering ourselves to help. Thank you.
Thank you. The perception of the criminal justice system by the Latino community.
Good afternoon. My name's Elisa Villa. I'm with the Public Defender Division, and our group came up with 3 major issues that we believe the Commission needs to address. The first is the very negative Latino youth perception of the criminal justice system. The second is the need to remove language barriers and improve cultural competence within the criminal justice system, including the local law enforcement agencies. And the third issue is to address the problem or the issue of state and local law enforcement involved in immigration law enforcement. The solutions we came up with in these three areas are, with regard to the Latino youth perceptions, we suggest that more community outreach programs be created and funded to address the Latino youth perceptions and to change those to positive perceptions. To engage human rights commissions at the local and state level to work with community organizations, local law enforcement, and the criminal justice system to continue to engage youth and to serve as mentors. To make existing programs more accessible to all Latino youth, including non-citizen Latino youth. And to overall be more proactive and not reactive to the Latino perception of the criminal justice system. The second issue we think that needs to be addressed are the language barriers and the general cultural competency that exists within the criminal justice system. Our overall discussion pretty much came to the conclusion that there are huge language barriers that exist within the criminal justice system, starting at the local police level with arrests and investigations of criminal incidents where they are not properly using interpreters with witnesses and with criminal defendants. We suggest the use of advocates and interpreters at the law enforcement level, at the local police level, that police be required to use interpreters and to report the use or lack of use of interpreters and translators in their police reports and warrants, so that when the defendants come to court, the defense attorneys, the prosecutors, and the judiciary are aware of what barriers may or may not exist and to what extent they may affect the accuracy of the police investigation and the reports and the witnesses' statements. We also recommend that the current use of technology can be better utilized. We also suggest that video conferencing and other forms, state-of-the-art forms of overcoming language barriers and making justice more accessible to people of different cultures using different languages be available throughout the court system. We finally suggest that more multicultural, multilingual personnel be hired in the criminal justice system as employees to bring a sensitivity of various cultures and diversity into the criminal justice system, and to also serve as role models for the younger generation. The final issue that we address that we think is very important for the Commission to look at is our state and local agencies' enforcement of federal immigration laws. We're suggesting a couple of things. First, to institute an across-the-board policy of a don't ask, don't tell policy in the criminal justice system regarding the legal status of non-citizens. This would apply to everyone from all court personnel in the judicial department, including CSSD. Secondly, we would suggest that this policy be instituted immediately in order to reduce racial profiling and an appearance of bias and ethnic discrimination within the criminal justice system. Currently, there are policies in place that allow personnel within the criminal justice system to ask people about their legal status. Our position is that that's inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. From destruction to construction, mentoring young men of color.
Good afternoon. My name is Joyce Betts. I'm from Families in Crisis. We have identified 3.5 issues. And those issues are centered around funding, recruitment, and parental involvement. Under funding, one of the things that we heard resounding as we talked about juvenile justice issues was that there needed to be a paradigm shift in funding to put more emphasis in prevention and also preservation. A lot of times there are programs that are funded that help children and help youth reach a point of stability, and once they reach that point of stability, then we discharge them from our program as a positive discharge, but there are no other funds or programs to help sustain their point of stability. Also, in terms of recruitment for mentors for this population, we also thought that we have systematically excluded males without degrees and felonies, and really need to look at our mentoring programs and recruitment aspects to attract working class males. No offense to the fraternities and all the professionals who are mentoring, but I think we are really not tapping into a pool of mentors that could really provide services to the young males. Also, in terms of parental involvement, we thought that there also needed to be an approach that would look at a system of family mentors. A lot of times we like to work with young people in vacuums and provide services to them just themselves, and then we send them home and like, you know, good luck. But we really think there needs to be a source of family mentors, and also address the issues of barriers to access to services and provide more home-based services, and look for other indicators of parental involvement besides just whether or not a parent showed up to group or not. And last but not least, this is our point 5, in terms of helping decision makers, we thought that there needed to be an emphasis on making sure that the decision makers were not only representative culturally, but also economically reflected the population that they were trying to serve. So that's it.
Thank you. And finally, the power of choice.
I'm Leon Katz. I'm an attorney in Hartford. One of the drawbacks of going last is that most of the points I have to say have probably already been touched on by the other presenters, but here goes. Our suggestions are as follows. First of all, to provide extensive early preventative services. Secondly, and this is broken down into subgroups, reforming the juvenile correction system. And the types of reforms we're talking about are a meaningful balance between rehabilitation programs and deterrent programs, teaching real-world skills along with academic skills. And by real-world skills, we mean things like how to make a meal, how to manage your finances, balance a checkbook, along with the 3 R's. And finally, and this is similar to the second point, teaching life skills rather than just traditional programs, and teaching transitioning skills when you get out of the juvenile correction system, and job skills. Now, how do we bring this about? Well, our recommendations in that regard are, first of all, to retain but expand the existing programs. Secondly, extensive coordination with volunteer organizations, particularly the retired people, and making sure that the volunteers are well trained and are committed to the programs that you're going to involve them in. Coordinating of services between the various agencies, particularly educational agencies, and finally, getting the youth involved through things such as advisory boards.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to Judge Harper.
I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, this, to say the least, this has been a very rewarding and exciting day. And I want to especially thank all of the facilitators, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend the conference, the Commission's first statewide conference. To say the least, your input, your participation, and your recommendation will certainly assist the Commission in developing its agenda over the next year. You should note that we plan to publish all of the recommended action steps on the Commission's website, which is accessible off of the state's website. I would remind you to please turn in your evaluation. As I indicated this morning, this is our first time out of the box, and certainly there's some things that we can improve on, and we would appreciate your candid opinion. Also, I would say to you, please feel free to share with the Commission at any time any additional ideas, suggestions, or concerns you have that will help the commission with its mission. Again, I want to thank you so much. Your interest, your concern, your enthusiasm, your willingness to be open and honest, your recommendations will prove invaluable to the commission as we move forward trying to make a difference in the lives of our young folks. Please drive carefully and enjoy the rest of your day.